I'm Dan, and this is 10,000 Hours of Indie, a podcast exploring new music and delving deeper into what goes on in the background of the independent music industry. I'm a musician and passionate music lover, and I wanted to delve deeper into new music in the independent scene around the world. I also saw this as a chance to help artists connect and share their stories, so if there's someone you hear and you want to find out more about, every podcast has links in the show description. Get involved, help this community grow, follow on the 10,000 Hours of Indie socials, you can find all the links in the show description. And also feel free to email me about anything music related, 10,000indie@gmail.com. I'm open to any ideas and love listening to your promos. Speed Week are a four-piece garage punk band hailing from Melbourne, Australia, consisting of Elliott Gee on vocals, Brad McDermott on bass, Andrew Robinson on drums, and Ryan Webb on guitar. Formed in 2019, they released their first album, Hey Hey It's Speed Week, the following year, but were hampered by the pandemic. Their second album, Week Speed, was released on the 16th of October via Endless Recordings and was written organically using stray bits of lyrics and bursts of guitar sent to one another over WhatsApp over the last 4 years. As the band grow older and parenthood begins, they are more acutely aware of current issues from politicians to technology. Ragged, anthemic shoutalongs are their thing, much the same as myself. So I'm catching up with them for a chat about the new release. Hi, Elliott. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Judging from the press release of the album, you had a lot of things you needed to get out in these songs.
Yeah, it took us 4 years to make the album. And in those 4 years, a lot changed in my personal life, but also a lot changed in the world. And it was kind of, half written during COVID and then half written post-COVID. There were a lot of things, especially in Tasmania here where I live, and then in the world happening that I needed to get out. And it's a very cathartic release, writing lyrics for me.
It's clear that you've been reflecting on moving up a generation in the scheme of things, becoming a parent.
I've got 2 kids now, but I think becoming a parent for me has made me look at the world in a different way. And I think, one of the big topics that has inspired me is the climate crisis. Living in Tasmania, seeing big business affect our natural environment, the taking from it, the pillaging from it, the profit only goes to a few people. That's really got me kind of fired up. And I feel like putting that into action in lyrics and in, this kind of music is important. And I also feel like post-COVID, I don't know, there was like a resurgence for me of like punk and garage. And it almost felt like we needed to just get it out and do it as quickly as possible with the most energy as possible, because COVID kind of showed us we didn't have much time.
Do you think it's easier to get those sort of angry lyrics and frustration with things out in a punk band?
For me, it is. I used to make theatre for years, so you put a lot of work into a show, which goes for an hour and a half, and you have a lot of ideas. Yeah, something about trying to pack in everything you want to say to a 2-minute song and say it meaningfully. It's powerful to me, but, it still takes a lot of work to get it right and to make sure that every word you're saying is going to hit the audience. And, I have a really big thing that in all of our songs that I feel like the first line of every song is so important. It has to hit the person listening to it. Otherwise, what's the point in opening your mouth? And, same goes with like the first song on the album, which is called Business as Usual. I feel like the first line of that song, which is everywhere I look, I see daylight robbery, kind of sums up where we're going to go for the rest of the album.
So this is a 2-part question. First up,
Yep.
How about the band name? How did that come about?
It took us a long time to find a band name that we liked, but I think Speed Week was actually probably one of the first band names we came up with. And it's based on a racing car TV show. It's pretty ironic. None of us are into cars. We're all from Tasmania, and in Launceston, where 3 of us are from, people love their cars. There's a lot of loud cars, so I feel like we're probably leaning into that irony. But I also think having the word speed kind of feeds into our style of music. And, it's energetic and full of energy, and try to make our songs like a car that's screaming down a highway.
That sums it up pretty well. How about the album title? Because all you've done with the album title is reverse the words, so it's Week Speed.
I think we always joked about calling an album Weak Speed. I feel like we put a lot of work into songs. Maybe we don't put as much work into what our albums are going to be called. The last one was called Hey Hey at Speedweek. So
Yeah.
I think we probably fitted in with the same theme. But at the same time, we kind of didn't know what the album was going to be called for a while until we wrote this song, which is the last song on the album. And then for me, it kind of worked conceptually with the album to call it Weak Speed. The title Weak Speed kind of sums up the way of the world at the moment and the state of the world being so chaotic and intense and overwhelming, both personally and more internationally, and politics and environment and business and people, that in a way we kind of all need a bit of weak speed to settle us down, because the world is overwhelming enough. I couldn't have any more stimulation if I tried. So it's kind of a desperate plea to say I need weak speed because I don't know what else to do. But the album title also came from a poem that a friend found in a toilet, and the person had written, "The surf is speed, the speed is surf," which is why we've kind of packaged the album up in a laundry kind of washing detergent packaging box to kind of go off that joke that there is actually a drug inside, but it's laundry powder.
So I've spoken to a few bands whose members are separated by cities or even countries. You're obviously now living in Tasmania while the rest of the band are living on the mainland. How has it changed the dynamics for you guys?
It kind of works in a way because the musicians are in Melbourne and I'm here in Tasmania as the vocalist. And I suppose COVID was the other thing that separated us. They were going through some pretty tough stuff in Melbourne. We were going through our own kind of lockdowns here in Tassie, lots of changes in life. The process was just a kind of continuation of what we'd started in Melbourne. I feel like for me, the topics and the inspiration for the album comes from moving back to Tasmania, where I was born, and kind of forgetting what this place was like and forgetting how disengaged a lot of people are and how conservative it is. And I think then the other guys, being from Tasmania, kind of still had that to go off as well. So we were just living in different worlds. But, writing music and being inspired to put an album together was still something that was really important to us.
So tell me a little bit about how you made the album. I mean, 4 years is a long time, even for people living separately, a band that are separated.
We released our last album in 2021. So I think because of that, and I moved to Tassie in 2020, we had already started writing some of the songs. That process had already kind of started. I suppose a big part of the writing process is our drummer, Andy Robinson. He records all our songs in his studio at Rolling Stock Studios, and he produces it and then mixes it. So we're lucky that we were able to, if I was in Melbourne, we could all get in the studio and put down a song. Or we even did a few recording sessions down in Tassie where Andy came down and brought his interface and a microphone, and I could record vocals over the top of the recorded music. But yeah, I mean, the process for like writing songs sometimes was Ryan, our guitarist, would come up with something and send it over WhatsApp in a recording, and then I'd be able to play that and write lyrics and come up with topics and ideas. And they were usually shared over WhatsApp, and I'd be sending drafts on Google Docs, and the guys were always giving feedback and other ideas. And then, when we got in the same room, that was when things really came together. But probably towards the second half of us like putting it together, we were rarely in the same room, all four of us. And yeah, there was a few trips Andy did to Tassie. We recorded in a friend's basement. We went out to a hall about an hour out of Launceston and recorded one of the songs. So yeah, it was a very disjointed process. But the process really relied on bits of music and inspiration from Ryan, the guitarist, and Brad, the bass player. And then I was able to write lyrics, come up with ideas. And my writing process with lyrics is very conceptual. So I kind of research the hell out of topics and come up with as many ideas as possible. And then the songs kind of start to piece together from there, like a puzzle. And then, some of our songs we wrote and then rewrote into new songs. And I think there was even one song that we couldn't even crack, so we just scrapped it. Yeah, I get a lot of ideas and inspiration from very pedestrian things I hear on the street, or, in the news and think about how to turn them into ideas.
So you mentioned there, and it was the next question anyway, that your drummer is also your producer.
He's a really good producer, and that's what he does for a job, and that's his passion. And I find he's good at producing us as a band and producing our sound. But also when Andy and I get in a room and I bring all my lyrics in and my ideas, he's very good at clearing out the stuff that doesn't make sense or just doesn't need to be there. The best narrative for the songs, like Business as Usual, which is the first song on the album. That was basically just all ideas when we started, and then Andy and I were just in a studio together, and we put that together in one day, and that was basically us just spitballing and him producing me and telling me to do it again and coming up with something better and improvising, and so quite a rewarding process working with Andy like that.
And if push came to shove, which would be your favourite track on the album?
It's either Business as Usual or probably Subdivision.
To quote MaximumRock'n'Roll.com about your first album, unlike their yobbo contemporaries, the Chats or Amel and the Sniffers, who fall somewhere between a little winky and total caricatures, I assume winky is supposed to be wanky and they've toned it down. Speed Week just seem like some lads who want to get together up the pub and bang out some tunes. Would you agree with that? Maybe less so for the second album.
Yeah, maybe less so for the second album because we weren't able to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it started. 3 of us went to the same high school in Launceston, and Andy's also from Hobart down south. And yeah, when the band started, we just kind of wanted to get together and write some music. And it was Ryan, the guitarist, and Brad, the bass player, and myself that got together first and didn't really know what form it was going to take. Then we kind of worked out a bit of a lineup that was guitar based, me on vocals, and then Andy came in on drums. And I feel like when Andy came in, he really whipped us into action and was like, if you want to do this and you want to play this is how it has to be, which was great and definitely what we needed. And yeah, I think it just started as an organic process. And the biggest thing that we all have enjoyed is playing, punk garage music that really is earnestly us, but also kind of adding in the humor and the wit and trying to focus on the lyrics as a really powerful part of the songs. Not forsaking that. For us all, there's a real sense of like a Tasmanian humour throughout it, and a way of looking at the world that does come from this place that's, serious, but tongue-in-cheek at the same time.
Was it a conscious decision right back when you decided to form a band to be a punk band, or is that something that came through trial and error?
Yeah, I think it was just the kind of natural sound that progressed, and it probably started with a lot of Webber's guitar lines and style. And Webber's also in Split System, which is another Melbourne punk band. But yeah, he has a very unique style on guitar, and I feel like, I don't know, when I started writing lyrics, I was very much inspired by that sound that he was creating on guitar. When I look back, even on this album, the last album, like a lot of the sounds that the music creates, they sound like the topics I'm singing about. So like Automate Me, which is the second track on the album, it is quite robotic and sounds like a piece of technology or a robot functioning and moving or malfunctioning. So yeah, I've always been inspired by that with the music. Is we seem to achieve this kind of complementary sound with the topics of the songs and the sound that generates through the music.
Are there benefits for a band like yourselves that, for example, Amel and the Sniffers have become such a well-known band, and especially well-known for being Australian punks?
Well, yeah, I know that I haven't been there with music or anything, but I know that, Australian punk is very well regarded and pretty big in Europe for the sound it creates. So there obviously is benefits, because I know some of our music has been played in Europe, and it's nice to be talking to you and have that connection. But it is funny because, yeah, in Australia, it's such an underground thing. I mean, Amel and the Sniffers have probably brought it to the surface, which is awesome. But I think it's a part of our culture we think we need to suppress, which in actual fact, as a white Australian culture, I kind of think that ochre kind of sound or that punk sound is actually expressing an honesty, because, this isn't our land and we're on stolen land, and we are exploring something that's a bit rougher. And and rawer. And, Australia is a raw place, very much still working out our identity, which I think we're probably doing that with a lot of our music, is just trying to explore our own identities within this culture that landed on this continent.
So at this point, I usually discuss social media presence with a band. But
Okay.
apart from some Instagram stories I've seen, you don't seem to be particularly active. Do you find social media to be a chore?
Yeah, I think we do. And I think because we haven't had much in the way of gigs and momentum in the last 4 years, and it's just been us working behind the scenes, I just don't think we post much or really put too much time into it. I think for us, being able to write music, create, and then release music is just such a bonus for us to get it out there. But we probably should try a bit harder in that way.
So how about promo for the album? Do you have any plans to do some shows, or what's going on there?
Because the record's released through Endless Recordings in Australia. So, they're promoting the album. And then, we're probably just promoting shows for next year, but it's all very much still in the works. Another part of us writing the album is we're also all so busy with the juggles of life and work and family. And our guitarist Webber, he's just had a baby. So, everyone's juggling many different things. So, like I said, it's like releasing the album and then being able to play shows is just such a bonus and good fun. And, for me, I feel like playing shows is such a release, getting up there for 45 minutes and absolutely just letting loose. We're not doing a lot to promote it, but hopefully people, will sell some copies and get people interested and build some momentum. Hopefully a few people will be listening to Weak Speed. Because most of the songs were written without being in the same room, I think there's only one song we've played live off that album. It is really a studio punk album, which I don't know if that's ever been done before. Because usually punk needs to be like played to a live audience to test it out, to make sure the songs work. Most of these songs, the energy has been created through just writing them in the studio and writing them in solitude or putting them together in a friend's basement. So when we do play live, it'll be pretty interesting to see how they translate. We'll have to do a fair bit of work to get them like to that energy. But like a lot of the songs, when I think about them, I think, I can't wait to play that to a live audience.
So any music videos coming at all? Because there's a couple of songs on that album that certainly lend themselves to some cool visuals.
Maybe a music video for Business as Usual, but it's still in the works. Maybe a music video that really highlights the destruction of the natural environment down here in Tasmania, Lutruwita.
So the final question, what music are you listening to at the moment that listeners of the podcast may not be aware of and should take some time to check out?
I feel like I'm in a funny place with my listening at the moment. I'm kind of really going down a wormhole of like country and folk, which is a different energy to the album. An old country artist that I love listening to is Blaze Foley. I feel like with my lyrics and writing for punk, I really like it to be a story and a character. And I love the storytelling in Blaze Foley's songs. Another artist I've been listening to is Casey and Clayton, who are a duo. Beautiful harmonies and guitar lines. Yeah, I recently discovered this beautiful American kind of emo country artist called Aura Kogan, who I love. But yeah, I've just been really listening to a lot of country ballads. Down here in Tassie, I run a composting business and do a lot of growing, and I've worked on farms, and starting to really get into the kind of the storytelling that comes from the land, which really interests me at the moment, which is a very different energy to punk music.
A solo folk album next then?
Well, I don't know about that, but I suppose I'm also interested in, and this could be an idea for another project, but I'm interested in the idea of like, punk, garage, DIY music kind of being inspired by the environment and the natural world and telling stories that are based on that. Because, I think we really need to start talking about it more and finding various avenues to tell those stories.
So for anyone wishing to find out more about the band, you're on Instagram, Facebook, or at least you have a page on Facebook.
I don't think we used it. I wouldn't bother.
So mainly Instagram and Bandcamp then?
Yeah, I would follow those.
Weak Speed by Speedweek is out now via Endless Recordings, both physically and across all streaming platforms. Elliott, thank you for giving us some of your time. It's been fascinating to find out about the album and the band.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for your time. And yeah, I hope some European listeners kind of pick it up and get their dose of Weak Speed.